In 1965, if you boarded a commercial airliner anywhere on Earth, chances were overwhelming that it was made in America. Boeing, Douglas, and Lockheed didn't just dominate global aviation, they defined it. They controlled over 80% of the worldwide airliner market, turning the skies into an absolute American lake. Across the Atlantic, Europe's aviation pioneers were suffocating. Manufacturers in Britain, France, and West Germany were producing brilliant engineering, but operating in isolation. Their home markets were too small, production runs were too short, and corporate losses were mounting. European leaders realized a brutal reality. No single European nation could afford the billions needed to build a modern jet airliner alone. Survival meant doing something unthinkable, pooling their sovereignty, their factories, and their national pride. In December 1970, Airbus industry was officially created. It wasn't founded as a conventional corporation, but as an economic consortium, a legal entity designed to allow former wartime rivals to share technology, risk, and industrial capital. Wings would be built in Britain, fuselages in Germany, tails in Spain, and final assembly would take place in Toulouse, France. To the American giants in Seattle, it looked like a politically motivated nightmare that would collapse under its own weight. They were dead wrong. In the early 1970s, American manufacturers were locked in a race to build giant, four-engine monsters for long ocean crossings. But Airbus spotted a massive, neglected gap in the market, short to medium domestic routes that needed high seating capacity without the massive fuel burn. Their answer was the A300, the world's very first twin-engine wide-body jet. By dropping down to just two high-bypass engines, Airbus cut fuel consumption drastically. But airlines were skeptical. European orders trickled in slowly. Then came the desperate gamble that changed everything. Airbus offered 4 A300s to Eastern Airlines, one of America's major carriers, completely free for a 6-month trial. Eastern's CEO, former Apollo astronaut Frank Borman, took the deal. The results were undeniable. The A300 burned 30% less fuel than Eastern's tri-jets. Borman immediately placed a firm order for 23 aircraft. Airbus had finally cracked the American market. By the mid-1980s, Airbus was ready to move from a niche alternative to a technological pioneer. In 1988, they launched the single-aisle A320, introducing a radical innovation to commercial aviation. Digital fly-by-wire flight controls. Instead of heavy steel cables pulling flight surfaces, computers now translated pilot inputs into electrical signals. This new digital cockpit let Airbus remove an entire crew position. Airlines now needed 2 pilots to fly the aircraft, not 3. Transforming the A320 into an absolute commercial titan and putting Boeing on high alert. By the turn of the 21st century, the Underdog had become an equal. Airbus and Boeing were locked in a fierce, neck-and-neck duopoly, and both companies were preparing to bet their futures on radically different visions of how humanity would fly. Airbus placed a $25 billion wager on size. Believing that growing hub-and-spoke airport congestion would demand massive passenger capacity, they built the A380, a double-decker super jumbo capable of carrying over 800 people. Boeing bet the exact opposite: direct, point-to-point travel on smaller, hyper-efficient, long-range aircraft like the 787 Dreamliner. Boeing proved right. Passengers favoured direct flights over transfers at crowded megahubs. The A380 was a triumph of engineering, but a commercial miscalculation. Production was eventually shut down, handing Airbus a costly lesson in market dynamics. Yet Airbus adapted with ruthless efficiency. Rather than starting from scratch, they refitted their flagship single-aisle line with hyper-efficient engines, creating the A320neo. It quickly became the fastest-selling commercial aircraft in aviation history. When Boeing attempted to rush out its answer, the 737 MAX, design oversights led to catastrophic failures. In October 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 crashed into the Java Sea shortly after takeoff, killing all 189 people aboard. Less than 5 months later, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed in nearly identical circumstances, killing all 157 aboard. Both aircraft were Boeing 737 MAX 8s. Investigators traced both crashes to the same automated flight control system, called MCAS. These incidents ground every Boeing 737 MAX 8s and plunging the company into a generational crisis. AirBus capitalized on its momentum, quietly capturing over 50% of global deliveries. What began as a fragile European political experiment had done what many thought impossible. It broke the American monopoly, transformed how the world flies, and claimed the crown of global aviation. Today, every time an airliner lifts off, there is a more than 50% chance it bears the Airbus logo. What started in 1970 as a desperate, fragmented coalition of European nations, mocked by American executives as a political nightmare, permanently altered the trajectory of global commerce. They didn't just build planes, they proved that collaboration could dismantle an untouchable monopoly. The skies no longer belong to a single nation. They are shared, shaped by a decades-long war of innovation that forced the entire world of flight to evolve.